Facebook's live. Not Facebook, YouTube. I think. There we go. All right, Rachel Bonhote-Mead, six-time Swiss surfing champion. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
Cool. It's been a while now, actually, isn't it, since we first kind of met and filmed back at Alaya Bay.
Yeah, a few
So,
months now.
yeah, August last year. So maybe
Back
just
when the water was warm.
yeah, exactly. You did the Alaya Cup though, didn't you? The Winter Cup.
Yeah, that was amazing, but a bit cold, like in 3-degree water, but amazing.
Yeah, cool.
So,
Well, I guess thanks for making time today so that we
yeah,
can
no
actually
worries.
speak a little bit. Um, I obviously know who you are. Lots of other people know who you are. For anyone listening to this, why don't you just give a little introduction to yourself? Like, who is Rachel Bonhote-Mead? Where are you from? And when did you start surfing and so forth?
Okay, so, yeah, a bit of a mix here. Swiss Australian surf fanatic, living actually currently in Switzerland, go figure, in the mountains at 1,300 meters in the snow. It's snowing right now. So, yeah, mum, an accountant, full time accountant. So, yeah, a bit of an odd mix. Yeah, so my mom's Swiss, my dad's Australian. I grew up in Australia, and now I think 13 years I've been living in Switzerland. But yeah, an absolute surf. You can call surf nut
Yeah.
and Swiss champion, and yeah. Anyway, you'd already mentioned that.
Where are you
So
from? Like, where did you grow up? Is it Lennox Head? Is that right?
yeah, well, I actually grew up just like about 30 minutes inland from Lennox. So I started surfing. It was sort of like more on weekends. Like my dad would take us surfing. It was actually on boogie boards. So I've actually got an identical twin sister. If
Right.
anyone sees someone identical and they don't say hi, that's why. Anyway, so we actually started on boogie boards and we started standing up. And my dad's like, "Well, I'll just get you surfboards." Like, okay, cool. So that's how we actually got into it. But it wasn't. It was sort of like every weekend or second weekend. So it wasn't like every day after school, which would have been actually kind of cool had it been, but it just was what it was. And then I think I was about 19, and then I moved to Lennox, but I consider myself a Lennox local. And that's when I started really surfing. But I think from about 16, we got into like a girls' surf club, a little bit of coaching. So that's when it started taking off, and that's when I really got into contests. So yeah, that's a little bit
It's a
how
bit of
I
a
got.
hotbed, that area, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got Stu Kennedy and you've got Daniel Thompson, Tomo Shapes.
Yeah, I actually served. So when I was living there, like Stewie Kennedy was a little grom, so we'd be going out at the point at 6 in the morning, and his mum would be dropping him off, and he was like, a tiny little kid, and like pulling into these like crazy big barrels, but he was, an amazing surfer, like at that young age. Yeah, so there's some amazing surfers in the area, and like girls and guys.
Right, right.
So you'd see them and you're just getting pushed the whole time, going, I want to surf like that. I want to be like that surfer. Um, and then we had also amazing coaches. So I was, just like training squads. I was part of a girls surfing club. So it was once a month. So yeah, it was, there was so much surfing happening.
Yeah. What age was the transfer from boogie boards to proper surfboards?
Maybe at 7. Like we just got like these cheap secondhand boards. Um, yeah, maybe it was about 7. I can't remember, but yeah, 7, 8. And it was just like learning on little whitewash, it was perfect. And especially around there was like a lot of like beach breaks, so it was just little beaches that we started surfing on. It
Yeah,
was perfect.
yeah,
And then like the beaches around there are just beautiful, and then like there's great learn to surf beaches. It's not like reef like Indonesian reef
yeah,
everywhere. So, and the waves, yeah, it can get bigger and heavy, but it's nice. It's a good
yeah.
learning spot for sure.
What age was the first time you surfed kind of the main point break there at Lennox, the right hander?
Gosh, I can't remember. Uh,
Did you just paddle out one day, or did someone say, "I'll take you," and it's like a rite of
you
passage?
know what? I
How did
should
that
actually
happen?
remember that, and I can't. Oh my gosh, my memory. I'm trying to think. Maybe like 17 or 18, but there's different times, at least Lennox Point, to surf when it's a bit not safer, but basically it's those rocks. Like if anyone's been there, those rocks are, they'll collect a bit of skin. uh, and on a lower tide it's a lot easier. On a high tide, even if it's like tiny, it's quite scary to get out on. um, So I probably went on a lower tide when there was like maybe sometimes there's a lot of sand that comes in, so it makes it a little bit easier. So I think I probably went there like on a medium sized day, low tide,
Yeah.
because it's
Okay.
not only the jump out, it's the jump like coming back in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lost quite a bit of skin to those rocks.
Just came back from Lanzarote with Mark, and the same thing. Like I'd never visited the place before, but getting in and out was always quite interesting. I mean, it always takes quite a while across like a rocky spot, right, to get in and out.
Yeah. But I have to say, surfing at Lennox Point, that gives me a lot more confidence when I go to a lot of other spots where it's, a bit rocky or you have to get in or out. I'm like, okay, that's all right. I can do that.
Yeah. Okay. If you can
Because
handle
the
that, you
thing
can handle
is,
somewhere else.
yeah, because at Lennox Point, basically the rocks, you've either got the two sorts, like the slimy ones or the ones that have the little barnacles. So it's either you go the slimy ones and you fall in and you hurt your ankle, or you get the barnacles that have more grip but rip your feet up. So it's like, what do you choose? But anyway, good fun.
Do you reckon
Good fun.
surfing and that kind of point breaks influenced your surfing? I mean, Joel Parkinson talks about the points
Yes,
from up at Snapper and about when you watch his surfing, it kind of flows really nicely. And having seen you surf, albeit at Alaya Bay, obviously, you're very smooth at connecting things together. So, what's your take on that? Do you think that's influenced you a lot?
definitely. But then I have to point out it's on my forehand on
Yeah,
rights, because we have a lot of more the right hand point breaks. Like we don't have the big we don't have a big left hander like Lennox Point. Yeah, so I grew up a lot on my forehand catching right. So yeah, my forehand is a lot better. I understand, connection of what like turns, and can read it a lot better. And I avoided my backhand for years and years and years, even to the point where it became a joke with my coaches,
right.
saying, right, you're just going to go out and get lefts, because I avoided in contests. I would always seem to get, it's like, I'm not going left. So I had a really big difference between my lefts um, and rights. And I wasn't as good and as confident on my left. So I definitely avoided, but on my forehand, the level, I really understood right point breaks and even beaches. So everything sort of right on my forehand was a lot easier, and actually still is, which is why a lie, which I know we'll get into it, why having a liar is amazing
Yeah,
to
yeah. I mean, look,
practice
actually,
weaknesses.
even when you go to a wave pool, it's always catch 22, right? Because people tend to go on their forehand. And if you look at the bookings, like obviously Bristol, the wave is local for me, but people tend to surf their forehand because often it's their strongest and they want to have the
Yeah,
best time. They're paying for a session. It takes quite a lot of effort to go to the backhand, especially particularly when you're paying. But it's very
yeah,
symptomatic of what you're talking about, isn't it? You know, if it's what you're used to and it's what you kind of
yeah.
enjoy doing, you kind of avoid the other side.
And that's why I started when Elia actually opened. I actually mainly went on my forehand, and I wasn't going on my backhand. And I was like, no, 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 right, I'm going to start
Yeah.
practicing. And then I did. And so I'm getting better. It's getting better. But yeah, there's still work to do, but I'm a lot more confident in going lefts like in the ocean now. Or in contests even.
Yeah. Just adding the
Which
time together in it.
yeah, which is amazing because like in the ocean you don't sometimes getting a perfect little left hand, break where there's not many people, you can get a load of waves to practice like a load of, different things like technique or turns or this or that. You don't have that. Whereas that's why it's so handy down here. So
Down here in the mountains, yeah.
yeah, down here for over the mountain ridge. Be great if there was a tunnel. It'd take me 10 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it was
Wouldn't
pretty
have that.
crazy actually in December when we last saw each other at the Elia Bay kind of Winter Cup, seeing the kids. I thought actually they were probably the most impressive. Like, I forget the age groups. If I think it was under 13 and then 13 to 18. Um,
Yeah.
the kids and the juniors, just unbelievable how good they were. Um, and
They're
then we can talk a
incredible.
little bit about your progression, about the structure in Australia and how you said you joined surf camps and had coaches and so forth, and how much that
Yeah.
helped. But yeah, it was incredible to see. Be interesting
The
to see what
kids
happens.
are just on another level now.
Yeah.
Just, it's amazing. And even like when I went to Oz and you see these young kids, they love it, but they're in out surfing in the worst conditions anytime. And they're just like frothing. They're like, we're out there. And that's why they're so good. And they're starting at a young age. And then there's all the, support behind. But yeah, the kids, yeah, even I was just watching them, or even just being with the girls, like the younger girls. I was like, oh, she was, I think there was a 12 or 13-year-old girl, and she was amazing. And I was surfing with her. I felt like the grandma. I was like, right, she's doing, yes, I need to do that. What's she doing? I need to be that good.
Well, what was it for you then? So you started, in the single digit ages. When did you then start getting coaching? How was the structure like? Was it just about having a beach club or a surf club in
Yeah, it was the
Australia? How does that
women.
work?
Well, we were so fortunate to have in Lennox, there was a women's surf club, and they had club rounds once a month, and it was for like beginners or junior beginners, intermediates, advanced, longboard. And so it really catered for everyone. And they were just the nicest, and they still are, they still there. Nicest bunch of girls. So I started there, and that's when I met another lady whose partner was also coaching, and then it was just more like a once a week squad, like you would like swimming training. It was not like, it was just like squad, and we started doing that, and then also just doing the club rounds because I just saw it in the newspaper. I was like, oh, I really want to do it, and my mum actually took us down. I think it was 16, and that was when progression really started.
Yeah.
And then you just learn because like we were doing, it was once a month the club rounds, and so it's competition. So even if you're in the beginner division, it's still competition, but obviously the scaling is different. But you're learning how to compete, your best two waves, and then you'd have to come in and judge. So then you learn by judging other people, and it was done in such a friendly, safe environment. So I learned that competition wasn't, it's, yeah, obviously you want to win, but you really, it wasn't this, sometimes the competition, the perspective, I think, especially in, like I've noticed in Switzerland, it's like, oh, it's competition. It's, oh no, we're
Yeah.
going to lose. We're not going to do it. I'm like, well, it can be in a really nice environment. It doesn't always have to be, how do you say it? Not nasty, but just like fun.
Yeah.
And it was fun. So that's how I learned. And I learned so much. And so then I just went from intermediate division then to the advanced. And you're surfing against these amazing girls. Like we had Lorena McGrath. This is back in the day. And she was in our club round. And then she actually went on to surf on the what do you call it? The world tour.
Yeah.
So, we had really high level girls. And then we had a lot of the women that were actually running it had so much experience. So then you just learn from that. So that was, again, we were very fortunate to have that in our local area.
Yeah. It's interesting you touch on a couple of points there, because competition can be really like negative in some ways. It stops you because it stops you learning sometimes, because you're just only going to focus on the things you can do to get a score or to beat the
Yeah.
other contestant.
Yeah.
Um, and it can make you worried, and it can G you up, and you worry about the outcome.
Yeah.
But competition can also be good because it's always the training. You
Yeah.
say, right, at a set date, I'm going to compete and I'm going to do the training for it. So therefore, I need to learn some things. And it all depends on the way you kind of look at it. So it sounds very much like you found competing a positive thing for learning.
Oh, completely. And I think a lot of people did find that you just learn a lot. And we were surfing, like it was every month, and the conditions weren't good. Like it was, it's over summer, it's 2 foot, it's like choppy, the wind comes up, and you learn to compete in all of that, and not just, oh my gosh, it's not good, or it's not, because they watch the world tour and it's terrible. It's like, oh, and these are why some of the girls and the guys get so good, because they're doing competing in terrible, not terrible, but just not your perfect, you know,
Yeah.
surf, like where you have to work, you have to think, you have to go, okay, well, where can I get, where's a contestable wave? What can I do? Where am I going to sit? What am I going to do? And it makes you think, like and then the other nice thing, because you're doing each month these contests, you're learning to lose, which a lot of people, it's hard. As a kid, you have to learn to lose, and then also win, like win graciously, and then,
Mm-hmm.
be happy for the other people if you lose. So, it's all these little life skills as well that you learn from a young age. Yeah, no one likes losing. But you you have no choice but to deal with it.
Yeah. And without getting too philosophical, it's very much
Yeah.
about, it's the process, isn't it? It's about embracing the grind. And if you
Yeah.
have it with a positive outlook and just love what you're doing more than like the kind of destination or the outcome, then
Yeah.
it's all good, isn't it?
And then you come back the next month going, okay, well, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
So you can look at it two ways. So if you take it, from losing, go, right, this is what can I do a bit better, or what did I do wrong? As long as, and that's how you learn, and
Yeah.
you do get better. But yeah, so again, like I said, we're like super fortunate to have that in our local area growing up. So I think a lot I can attribute to those girls.
Yeah. Seems very fortunate. And
And
obviously
then also my coaches, like I had a few, and they were just amazing. It was so much fun. I wouldn't call it, yeah, it was coaching, but they were just the nicest people ever. There's even, we'd do coaching and be like, on a Monday morning at 6 o'clock, you'd get there and it's like 1 or 2 foot slop onshore. You're like, oh, excellent, I can go back to bed. This is amazing. And no, we're going to go down the beach. 200 meters is a tiny little wave. What?
get out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm waffling on.
That's all right. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, competition's been a positive thing for you. You've obviously clearly got a really good outlook and perspective with it. You surfed the main break, which you said around 18, 60. What did you say?
I think
Around
18.
18.
I can't remember. Yeah.
So when did you push on from there? Because there's quite a lot of championships, ISA World Championship stuff. Like, how do you go from like a teenager? Obviously, you're very talented in other areas of your life, and you got your finger on the pulse there as well. But where did you go from there? So you're an 18-year-old. You said 19. You moved from Australia, right?
No, I was actually a bit older than that. That was about 6 years later.
Okay.
But the time, unfortunately, so I was doing sort of like the regional contests, and then I think it was maybe 20, 21. I can't remember. Then I made it to a state and even the Aussie titles. I mean, but the level was crazy. Like one of the contests we ran, like this, I actually was contest director. I put myself in the same heat as Stephanie Gilmore.
Wow.
Like that's the level we're talking about. Like we had all those girls, we had one big contest in the year. So yeah, level is was crazy high, and at the time, yeah, sponsorship was harder, and my parents also didn't have a huge amount of money to be able to support. It costs a lot of money, like the
Mm.
traveling, the contests, and all
Yeah.
that. So I was sort of doing more the local contests, and then I went to university because I was like, I can't. At that stage, I just wasn't quite good enough, and I also wanted an education, so that's why I did finance at uni and then surfed on the side. So I suppose I didn't dedicate 100% to surfing. Maybe maybe I could have made it further,
Yeah.
but I suppose it was just at that time reality as well. Um, yeah, so I did I did that. So I sort of did both. So when I was working full time as an accountant, and then weekends and after work and in the morning surfing, and that's when I was doing sort of all those like the smaller contests. Now there's a load more contests though. So like what there is now compared to when I was growing up, like the sports has evolved like, not tenfold, but even
Yeah.
more. And there's like the high performance center. There's so much more available. But I don't regret any of it. Look, I'm super happy with what I did, my decisions. And yeah, and then I came to Switzerland, and that's when I was able to join the Swiss team and then get through their part to go to the ISA World Surfing Games. Going in Australia, like no way. Like
Competition. Yeah.
the levels at another, the girls are just incredible. Like my level's good, like okay, it's good,
Oh, it's very
but
good.
yeah, it's good. But they I mean, they're all, the QS, you see the girls QS, amount of Aussie QS girls, like in the juniors, oof, there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of depth.
Well, you see this in other sports as well, don't you? If people move to a different country or they have some citizenship and so forth, and why not? Because if you're just
Yeah,
passionate about the sport,
yeah,
and it can, and obviously you've already spoken very highly of the competitive environment for you as a person, like for your
yeah.
surfing. So why not, right?
Yeah, and so then when I was here, I sort of was like, oh, there's Swiss surfing, and I sort of looked into it, and then we went to a championship, and that's how I got started with those guys. And it's another, it's all the Swiss surfers. It's amazing bunch of people
Yeah.
that are in Switzerland. From all not different walks of life, but you think, how did you get into it? No, it's everyone's got their own little funny story. All the
Yeah.
Swiss surfers do, and it's really fascinating
Yeah.
to hear. It's like, how did you get into it? Where did you learn to surf? It's
Yeah, so that's an interesting one as well, because often you think people that live by the beach are going to be the surfers, but it's what it's really about is accumulated time, right? Is to get your skills up, and sometimes if you're elsewhere, you're just so super enthusiastic and motivated that you do your day job or you grind, but then when you get to go somewhere, you just all your life's about it. So that enthusiasm, actually kind of like it's so helpful, right? So people come from all kind of different angles, don't they?
yeah, and you see this with like a lot of them just they want it. The ones that want it, they just go and like move to the ocean and they really push and they go surfing and they do it. Like I suppose maybe I did take it a bit more for granted. I was like, oh yeah, no, I won't go surfing today. It's not that good. Because you see here, and now I see myself when I go to the beach, it's not that good. I'm like, I'm going out. I don't care. I'm
Yeah.
even, I want to surf even more now that I'm here. I think it's because I don't have it
Yeah.
on my doorstep that makes me, like I think appreciate it even more. Not that I never did, that I didn't appreciate it, but
No, I understand. Yeah. So when was your first World Championships then? Yeah, what I see in the background there, I think you're in your surf room, aren't you? So I see a
oh
few
my
like
gosh,
ISA
it
certificates
was
up
the
there.
ISA. I think it was Peru. So I had Peru, and then I did the two Panamas. And then what did I do? I did a France and then Japan. So that was with the Swiss team. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Like you see, and especially it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the Japan one, when there was Kelly Slater, there was all the big names. That was incredible.
Yeah,
I
it
think
must be quite
makes,
nice to share the water with some of these people, right? Or just be around them.
yeah, and just watching them surf, it's when you see it on video or even on screen, it doesn't do it any
Yeah,
justice. It's when you're in the water, you see the speed, the power, and just their choice of waves, maneuvers. It's impressive.
yeah, it's
And
like a
it's
show,
amazing
isn't
to
it?
watch. Yeah, I had Kelly Slater paddling past. I was like, oh, Kelly Slater.
Try not to fanboy out, fangirl out too much.
I know I'm still a little kid when it comes to that. I couldn't even go and ask for a photo. I was like, no, 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 I can't do that.
Have you seen the pipeline stuff, which is going off the last 3 or 4 days, like the men and women, right? Like conditions in it's so good, and people on the beach,
I
like you're
know.
talking about, this must be just like a live show.
I know. I've actually been there and watched it once. I didn't surf the pipe because I'm just a bit scared of bigger waves. But we watched it and it was breaking, I think, second reef, and the break so close. It's so scary. So to actually have already watched it and watching it on the
Right.
big, well, watching the comp was, it was amazing. Watching Kelly Slater in the dying seconds.
Oh, it's
Oh,
buzzer beater. It was good, wasn't it?
I love watching that, and that's also another good way to get better surfing, and by watching and listening. Okay, I might be a little bit obsessive. I watch it all, like all the heats, all the girls, the guys. Actually, more so the girls than the guys, but uh, yeah, you can call me a bit of a fan.
Yeah. I think a lot of surfers are like you. You're not on your own, right? Like,
Yeah.
listen, who doesn't want to listen to top level people in the kind of like the pastime that they love talk about what they do? I mean,
Mm.
it's a
And you
bit like
learn also about all the strategy. That's with priority, like because I've surfed only a few times with priority, and I realize how much you do actually learn by watching these events. You think, okay, well, I've got to think about that, and just like the interferences or like what people are getting interfered on, and just thinking, okay, well, how do I? Because I mean, we grew up, we didn't have that. It was just paddle battles and hassling, but there it's a bit more gentleman.
the rules have changed
Uh,
though, haven't they? I mean, they used to have like paddling around boys and stuff like that, didn't they?
Yeah,
And
and we used to have top best three waves. So we'd have like 15-minute heats. That was, for example, in our 15-minute heats in our club round. It was best three waves. So, and then it was two waves that came in, and I was like, oh, that's a bit different. Like, it's kind of cool, the evolution.
yeah,
But yeah, surfing with priority, like like I surfed it last year. Yeah, it's different. It's a bit nerve wracking, but then when you do have priority, you think, oh, okay, what do I need to be doing? What do they do in the? What does
yeah.
Chris Moore do?
Well, they're all different as well, right? Like some people is being on the best wave, other people are just trying to get under priority. There's so many levels to the strategy, isn't there? And
Yeah,
um,
and it's sometimes funny. You get out there and it all goes whoosh.
I think we could all relate to that as well, right? Like, you watch something, okay, I'm going to paddle like this today, or I'm going to try putting my hands here or something like that, or I saw that and that looked really cool. And you go out there straight out of the brain, right?
Well, at least for me, I've got to keep it simple. So I need to just go out and work on one thing,
Yeah, smart.
because otherwise, if I think of two things or three things, out. So I just think, okay, just one thing.
Keep it simple. Yeah, smart.
Well, at least for me, some people are great at thinking a few things, but
Yeah.
I can't.
I don't
I
know.
do.
I'm sure there's some research somewhere which will say there's a maximum number of things that you can remember at any one time. I don't know if it's
Well,
7 or
especially
8,
in the
and under
surf,
pressure 3 or something.
like the conditions, the sets, the swell,
Mm,
like the tides, it's all changing, moving. So not only are you dealing with that, and then you're thinking, okay, well, what else? And then you're thinking, okay, I've got to catch a wave, and then what do you need to do on the wave?
yeah.
So it's good though. It gets the brain ticking, and that's what I love about it, because it's never, it keeps you on it. You have to, keeps you thinking. The brain's just churning the whole time. Well, that's what I love, at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, surfing and just basically living, and you've always got a difference, haven't you, between like overthinking things, then reacting to feelings and emotions. And surfing's great for that. I mean, you can't go out on a wave and say, I'm going to surf it this way, right? Because maybe the wave not ready for that, not ready to be presented. I mean, you know better than anyone. Yeah, it's good. It's that kind of unique pastime, isn't it? It brings it all
Yeah, you
together.
have to adapt exactly at that split second. At that point in time, you have to be present on that wave, then and there.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, like, if you've got all these things to think about, and that's why sometimes just having one thing in the head to work on is just so much easier. Just go, okay, just remember that. Just remember that.
Yeah.
And anything else is a bonus. Well, that's what I've like from my own past experiences, because sometimes I've got too many things I go at. I'm like, catch the wave, and it's all whoosh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people are at a lower level like myself. I mean, just trying to survive. You're just trying to catch the wave. You're just trying to get the ride, right? Like,
Oh yeah, no. Sometimes at my level too. Like, don't ever think like it's still the same. Especially now with crowds, you're just trying to get the wave and survive.
Yeah. There's levels, isn't there? But ultimately, when you get better at something, you're more aware. You know, it's like learning a language to start with. It's all jittery, isn't it? And as you get more proficient, it just becomes like second nature.
Yeah, but then sometimes, like, I've been at Hossegor and you've just got they're amazing surfers and the kids out in the water, and you're the one that feels like at the bottom of the chain again.
Yeah.
It's good. It's that's why we do it.
How was that trip to Hossegor, by the way? Because you went there after we filmed at Alaya. I think you went there for a little short trip, didn't you?
Yeah, that was good. I can't remember now. Yeah, I think I got some good waves. It was fun. It's always quite busy, so you have to be on your game. But we had a few fun days.
Yeah.
It was good. And then it just got a bit bigger. I get a bit scared. Bigger waves, it's always been, I think this is why maybe I haven't gone as far in competition. Maybe it's just like a mental block. At least for me, like bigger waves, I panic. I panic being out in bigger waves. And it's annoying because I know that I can actually it's not catching the waves, but it's about getting held under or, missing a wave and what's behind. And, but yeah, so Hossegor gets a bit bigger. I've had one or two pretty nasty hold downs. So it's.
Have you ever trained? Have you ever done anything for training for that? Do you ever do breath work, or do you do any of that stuff about being spun around a pool, or do you work on fitness? What do you do for
around
that?
here is a bit. I wouldn't say there's people. I once did an apnea course or just one or two sessions, but I think you just need to do. For me, at least, I think I'd need to do it like either intensely and then a little bit more regularly. And then sometimes it's also just been at the spots and getting used to it. So, for example, at Lennox Point, I'd be a lot better when it's a lot bigger, but I'm also used to it and confidence. So, but if I just, I might, because I work and live here in Switzerland, that's over the winter, it might be 4 months that I haven't surfed. So then when it gets bigger and it's your second or third day that you haven't, you're surfing, it just takes a little bit more time to get that confidence and also like the paddle power. But yeah, I know that would help. And it is always on my radar. I'm like, right, I need to go and do that or do either a camp or just spend a bit more time looking into it. But yeah.
You live in the mountains, right? I mean, there are similarities to all these sports of having a good methodical approach and only doing things just above your current ability. Not like watching someone do a backflip and then on YouTube and then running out and doing it. I mean, I guess being in the mountains all the time and understanding the conditions and what your level is allowing you to do, it's exactly the same, right?
Oh, exactly. And the thing is, I'm also a bit, I don't know, maybe that's just also my character. I like things methodical and, that I can sort of control this. Yeah. Like with a surf, what's a swell doing? What's a tide doing? I like to know everything and have like calculated risk. I'm a bit less gung ho. Like somebody like, yeah, it's fine. We'll go just drop down there. It's okay. And I'm like, Oh.
Different
I'm a bit more of a
personalities, right?
yeah, I'm a bit more of a scaredy cat. That, and I've got friends that they might have been surfing for a year. That, yeah, no, it's not that big. We're going out. I'm like, oh, how are you not scared? No, it's fine. Like, I want to be like you, not get scared. I'm like, anyway, it's I don't know. Maybe I was younger. I had a few bad hold downs when I was sort of young. I don't know. Maybe it's also character, but yeah, maybe I could have worked on it a bit more. But okay, I still love like my intermediate waves, having fun, not getting too scared. Yeah, like I've always gone out and a few times, yeah. Whew. But when it's sometimes I've been out and I've been just, I'm gonna die, and that's a little less fun. Some people thrive on it, but I'm like, no, 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 no.
Most surfers don't. Most surfers have had an experience which checks their kind of ego, right? Or gives them a reality check that Mother Nature's
Mm.
pretty strong.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm always impressed when I see like girls or guys that have been surfing a few years and they're just like charging or going out in bigger waves. I'm like, wow, hats off. That's pretty cool. You're lucky.
Yeah. So some basic questions for you then, like
Yeah.
most memorable wave or surf trip, because if you go on your Instagram page, you've been to some pretty cool spots and stuff. So where's okay, not even like the best, just some good spots that you've hit or good surf trips you've made and why.
Mm. Um. Oh gosh,
You're on the
they're
spot
all
now.
so nice and different in their own ways.
Yeah.
It's Hold on, let me think. Uh, I love Morocco. I'm just trying to think. Waves, Morocco, Maldives, or then Indonesia. Um, in Lakey Peak, I think I had some epic waves. Lakey Peak, that was, yeah. They're all so nice and different in their own ways.
How did you find the Maldives? I mean, people say
That was
it's not too
beautiful.
big, it's quite mellow.
Yeah, it was a lot
But
more
there's so
mellow.
many
Like,
spots, right? Like, did you go on a boat or did you stay in a hotel? What was the deal?
so I've been there twice. Yeah, twice. Once we had 1 week on land and then 1 week on a boat, and then the second time was only on a boat. So there's pluses and minuses for everything.
Yeah.
I actually love the boat. I think personally I'd like to go on the boat uh, more. And then yeah, we found some really nice waves, but it wasn't as it. It's a bit softer than I'd say Indonesia. But then we had 1 or 2 days where it got bigger, and it was still quite scary. Um, but yeah, it was like tropical warm waters.
Yeah.
Oh, just so nice. You're surfing in bikinis. Um, yeah, I love the boating experience. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't been, but people say you have to be careful which boat charter you go with. You know, you can get one with a smelly diesel engine and other ones which are like idyllic 5-star experiences, right?
Yeah, we got lucky, I think. Well, I don't know about lucky, but we had two really great boat boats we were on, so we enjoyed it. I think at the first one we were just a group of mates and there was no one else on board, so we
Wow.
got to choose. And the second one, I think it was also, I think we were a group of maybe 10, 12, I can't remember. And that was, we went actually down south and had some really good waves down there as well. I mean, it's all fun, but I mean, like, there's always pluses, minuses for everything.
Yeah.
But the boat, it's pretty cool. Apart from when you get off the boat, I got terrible land sickness. Like everything was just. So on the boat was fine. It was when I got back on land, it was a little bit disastrous. But yeah, the nice waves. Yeah, like your people, obviously we didn't actually get like crazy big barrels. So it depends what you want as well from a surf trip. Some guys are like, I just want 8 foot barrels, you know. I'm a little less like that.
Yeah, not
So
everyone can. I mean, thinking about like the normal kind of level surfer, especially around the, where you're not blessed with lots of heavy waves. Like the UK is more kind of like crumbling waves, and I mean, obviously there are some good spots and so forth, but in general, like it's not going to be like Indo conditions or Hawaii and so forth. I mean, it's just sometimes you have to go to somewhere you're going to have fun, right?
Yeah. But then I still love, like, I've been to the UK a few times, and it's still so nice. It's like beautiful coastlines.
Yeah,
It's
fantastic.
different. It's cold. It's it's still beautiful in its own
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. Yeah, don't underestimate. I mean, everyone gives the UK a bit of a hard time, but I think the people who live in the cool spots, they quite like it like that because, it is idyllic. It is beautiful. There's all around the country. There's nice spots.
For the whole of Europe, and this is why I loved, and that's probably why I also stayed. Partly, it's just all the European coastlines, and they change so much.
Right.
Like in Oz, it's, you might get 1,000 kilometers, and they're also like super stunning and beautiful, but it's more, similar, like flora, fauna, all of that. But then in Europe, you've got between Spain, France, the Basque Country, and then you've got
Basque
the
country.
UK, like all these different areas. Like the coastlines do change, and the area change, and the culture, and the language, and the food. So that also makes it, well, at least for me, I love all those different cultures, and yeah, and coastlines and waves. Like for me, I'd never gone, like when I went to the UK, I was like, these tides are crazy. Like it's 4 meter tides in the UK, like nuts. And trying to learn, like it's a complete different ball game, because I think it was like the board masters one year, and just in our heat, it completely changed because the tide came in. So
Was that Watergate
another,
Bay? Was that where the event was? Do you remember?
was it
Watergate Bay is normally where
Watergate
it is.
Bay? We actually didn't surf it there. It was is it Fistral Beach, or
Yeah,
the
Fisher's
main?
Newquay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually went and surfed there. But yeah, the tide just, in Oz it had maximum 2 meter tides, and we're like, oh, that's already pretty big.
Yeah.
And the same in France. Um, it's something to adapt to, and it's different.
Yeah. Spots are radically different, aren't they?
Oh, completely. Uh, that's another thing to be on your game with, because the surf spot just completely changes, especially on the sandy, banks.
Yeah, if the banks are working or not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But let's switch gears and away from idyllic Mother Nature and what surfing's really about. And let's talk about the wave pool. Let's talk about your amazing training tool on your doorstep. And you know what you've been doing there. Did you like it to start with? Did you go straight away? Had you surfed wave pools before? Maybe just talk about your wave pool experience and how you think about
So
them.
I'd actually surfed a few times. What was it? I think I'd surfed once in Spain. So I'd actually surfed in that type of cove before. And
Yeah.
I'd also surfed the wave garden in, what was it? Snowdonia. And also down in Spain. So I'd surfed wave pools before. Okay, it wasn't much. And then obviously when they started building this one, it was the most exciting thing for me. Like I was so happy, especially it's close, like 40 minutes. It's it's just down the road. Um, so I was just obsessive. Because I work full time. So, I don't, obviously my Instagram shows differently, but I'm not going to post photos of my, computer screen with Excel sheets. And then when I'm on the train working, I'll post something nice. So people are like, oh, you're always surfing. I'm like, no, not really. So I surf like 5 weeks a year, 5, 6 max. So then obviously, I like to have in those other weeks somewhere to surf, and especially down here, it's incredible. So I was just so happy when I heard that they were going to build it down in Sion. And so like we were going every day, seeing not every day, like when we'd go past, we'd see the construction. I was like, oh, they've got this going. It's just, and then when I heard they had water, and there were like a few people testing, so I was lucky enough to go down and test. But I actually hadn't surfed in 5 months. I hadn't really done any paddle training or any. You can do strength training, but obviously paddling it's really swimming is about the only thing which I actually hadn't done because our pool had burnt down up here. Um, so I went in and it was a disaster. It was, I think the water, what was it, 10 degrees?
Yeah.
I had like my wetsuit, hood, gloves, booties, and I'd never surfed. Had I surfed maybe once or twice with a hood, but plus it's a 5 millimeter wetsuit. It was horrible. I was missing waves, and there was actually camera because there was like media taking photos. I was like, oh, it's a disaster. It's like I don't normally surf like this. I just haven't surfed in 5 months. And this was my first wave, and it was left on top of it. Anyway, it was still amazing, but it was different, knowing where to sit, the noise, the wave, it is intimidating. So yeah, then I actually moved to the right and I started getting a few more waves. And it was actually one of the instructors gave me a few tips, which I still use, and I give tips to other people now. So that actually made a massive difference. It's just little things that you don't think of when you're in the water. So that really helped. And then after and then it got warmer, and then I got used to it. And then I think that was in March, and then May I did a surf trip. So then I got fitter and my shoulders got stronger again. And then it all clicked in and I got used to it. So it was amazing. And so I think I was trying to go like maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. So now it's just the most amazing training ground. So yeah, as you were saying, so I practiced on my rights to start with, and then I was like, right, I really need to start practicing my lefts and stop avoiding the.
Yeah, it's tricky though. Like,
So,
it's interesting. I think it's quite nice to hear you share those first wave experiences.
and I know people have had that, and
Everyone does, apart from like super. If you're Geordie Smith or one of the top
yeah,
pros or something, okay. But good people, not just like your normal kind of person. Everyone kind of struggles on those first
yeah.
sessions. It just takes a lot
And
of
I've
getting used
had
to. There's a lot going on, right?
a lot of people that have said, "Oh, we had a terrible first session." It just they love the spot, and I think it's also you've got all this anticipation. Oh my gosh, it's a wave pool, these amazing waves, and you get all hyped up, and then if you don't get the waves, or you fall, or you're in the wrong spot, or you also get disappointed, and
Yeah.
it's a bit of a mixed feeling. And a few times I was like, look, have that first bad surf, you've got to get used to it, and then come a second time, and then they do, and they're like, oh, it's just
Yeah. It's got to kind of click, right? Like, one thing it does do as a training tool, it seems to really, it kind of like takes a lot of variables out of it. So in the ocean, you can kind of pick and choose, and you can flail and flap and maybe miss stuff, but it really dials in like you're going to take off now at this point. And once you get used to it, once you know where your spot is, and then you start working out, I'm doing this
yeah.
a bit wrong or this or that. Okay, great. But that's a good thing as well, right? Like, it's a kind of embracing those errors, but it can be super frustrating. Like, that
Yeah,
feeling of
at
coming
least
out.
it's a first session sometimes. I mean, some people have a great first session, but then I always say, do another one. But yeah, it does. Like once you get the hang of it and you know what you're doing wrong. And even now, I'm still doing things wrong and I'm still picking up. So, to have someone video, like I always say, if you've got, well, you know what's amazing is like you can actually set up your tripod and you just, you press play and you got the tripod, and yeah, obviously you got everyone else's in the session, but you can actually go and watch
Yeah.
yourself surf, which is sometimes not always nice to see.
Video doesn't lie, right?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
When I first saw myself like getting, I think it was when I was younger, like 16 on the first video, I was like, oh, I surf like that. My arms, it's terrible. It's a good learning curve. You just,
Yeah, sometimes you think you see someone like one of the good guys, or you think, I'm going to make my turn like that. And you see the video and you're upright, your arms are in some goofy position or something.
but
But
that's the
it's
best way to
it's good
learn.
feedback, right?
Yeah, and even at Alaya, they've actually got, they've got the Surfline
Yeah.
webcam, and I look at that, and if I've got no one to video, I'll still go on that. Yeah, it's not like super close up, but still go and watch the session and go, oh, okay, that's that's what I was doing. Oh, that turn actually looked a lot better than it felt, or the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it's really good. Yeah. So if anyone's actually there, look at the webcam. If you don't have that camera or someone or a partner taking videos, um,
Yeah. Helpful.
definitely, yeah, huge help. Huge help.
So again, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. You've been at the wave pool quite a fair amount now. What would you say is the one area which people kind of struggle with the most? What do you see people
Takeoffs.
takeoffs? Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Takeoffs. It's funny when you're in the water, you don't realize you think people are catching and getting more waves, and sometimes you think it's always you think, oh, I'm the one that's stuffing up. When you go back and see videos or you watch, you realize takeoffs is probably the one area I think that people struggle with
Yeah,
most.
yeah. But
I don't know if sorry.
this podcast isn't about me, right? It's all about you and what you've got to say. But I think there's, from my experience of hammering the wave pool for like 18 months, it makes you appreciate the different levels, makes you realize the things you just thought was just take for a given, you're actually doing wrong. But you got to find the information in the first place. You got to work out what it is other people are doing and why. It's like tips, but from credible source. But there are layers to it, and it's a very technical thing. And then even once you can kind of get to your feet, because most people are just trying to survive and get to ride the nice fun bit. But then there's the whole point about, are you trying to take the speed and then do a bottom turn? Are you just trying to take an angle? Because there's so many different kind of facets to it.
There's a huge amount, but I think the first one is just being in the right spot. And then if you're in the wrong spot, knowing where to move to or how to,
Share some thoughts
position
then.
yourself.
Go on, you talk about positioning. So what are your thoughts? I mean, I've watched you surf quite a bit, right? But go on, just maybe give some advice there. Actually, that'd be really helpful for people.
This is my own personal. So everyone's got their own ways. Sometimes I find people either sit too close to the wall, and that's when it's throwing a little bit more. So I just say come out from the wall a little bit, and plus if you do get rolled, you're also away from the wall, so it's not scary. And then yeah, so just sit a little bit away from it, and then just paddle hard. I notice a lot of people paddling, and as soon as the wave, you sort of feel yourself coming, you're kind of getting dragged behind and you feel the wave starting to come. People often stop paddling. They think that the wave's going to push them, and they end up at the top and either missing or just being at the top of the wave and just going over the falls. And that's even you see in the ocean. And that's when you're like, right, paddle hard. And that's when you need to, if you think you're on the wave, do another paddle. Like, or do another two paddles. And, and angle your board, opposed to going like straight to the beach, angle it sideways. So, especially at Laia. And this was the tip that they actually gave to me. So, this is my mistake that I was making at the very start. So, this is why it's also, I'm poaching. I can't remember who gave it to me. So, I'm poaching their tips. But that was the best thing, was just to angle the board towards actual building, like just a little bit like across the face, and start looking down the line. And by looking down the line, you're not looking dead straight, so you've already got shoulders and your body in a better position. And then if you're a bit slow, it also gives you that extra second to get up, because you're already going across the wave and paddling across, then straight down.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing at the start. I was literally paddling straight down. Maybe in the ocean you do have a bit more time, and just getting, flipped. And then the guy's like, no, like just angle your board a bit more. And plus I wasn't fit. I hadn't surfed in 5 months. So it actually gave me a few more seconds, because I get up quite slow. Like by angling, that gave me that cheeky extra, second or two to get to my feet.
Yeah.
And then keep going.
Yeah. I mean, that angle thing is interesting, because people talk about angling it once the wave has come, because you look where you go, and that's exactly what you're talking about. And if you've
But
got
not
like
too much. It's the other thing is you've got to
yeah,
be a bit careful. But
there's
it's
nuances to this,
basically,
right?
but it's basically not just pointing your board straight. Okay, unless you're pro and you want to, big bottom turn and all that. But just for generally speaking, at
Yeah.
least when you start, once you've got the hang of it, different story. But at least I think if you're starting for the first time, just for your first few waves, opposed to doing a big crazy steep drop bottom turn, yeah, just angle it. And then if you've got that down packed, then yeah, great, do straight down. But if you're noticing, I've just seen a lot of people just not paddling hard enough onto it and just stopping to paddle. So I was like, do those extra 2 paddles and then just
Well, those extra paddles you're talking about, I mean, it's happened to me many times. That it's very hard. It's again learning the languages of knowing. Okay, I'm paddling. I've got the speed. I'm in the right position. Okay, it's starting to lift me up. At what point do you know that you've actually caught it? If you start paddling and end up paddling down the wave to the bottom, okay, well, I've kind of done too many paddles. It's very difficult, but like you say, it's very easy to get drawn up to the top bit of the wave.
Yeah, you're better off actually being at the bottom of the wave and then, okay, it's not ideal, but if you're at the top of the wave, you're going to it's harder to recuperate than if you've done paddle too much and you might be just on the bottom. It might then push you along. But if you're at the top, it's harder.
Well, it's just hard, right? Like, especially when you're a lower level, it's not like you even choose to be at the top. It's the fact you go there because you haven't paddled. Like, it's just a lot going on, and knowing to pitch the board, or it's very difficult. So I'm empathizing, saying like, super tricky.
It is. I felt like I said in the first, session when I just wasn't fit and I didn't really know, like the amount of times I fell. And that's why that guy, the coach had given me, just that tip. And instantly, the next wave I got and I didn't fall.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's like that, right? Like just one little thing. Obviously, there's a big topic to cover and lots of things going on, right? It's not like there's just one answer, but sometimes it's just some one thing you talk about in that surf session, you try and it works and it changes the game, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone's got there's always little things that might help someone, but at least, well, I find if you don't get onto the wave, you don't even get a chance to practice a bottom turn, to practice a turn. So the first thing is you just need to get onto the wave. And I think, even at the start, I was overthinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to get a barrel, I'm going to, it's like, whoa. Yeah. Let's just get onto the wave first. Yeah, exactly. And it's true, you see it and you're like, oh, exciting. And, you're all, pumped up. Just get onto the wave.
Yeah, by hook or crook, you've got to get in there, right?
And then once you get used to it, then, you start toying with different things or different, I don't know, like different turns or, like just different, I don't know what you want to call it, different maneuvers on the wave. But like I said, first things first, get onto that wave.
Yeah, exactly. And it priorities, isn't it? I mean, you can talk about different lines. You can talk about using the energy of a steeper face wave and then bottom. Look, it's levels of ability, isn't it? And to start with, most of us, especially if you're on a mid length or something, a flat rocketed board or a longer like design outline, you're not going to be able to make those steeper drops. The board's naturally not going to fit in the wave so well. So, taking an angle, or you might get in a little bit smoother, but that angle can help. And then after that, you can start to do other bits and pieces.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always, well, at least that's my tips. The first thing I would work on is getting that right. And then you go down into the bottom turn turns.
Makes sense.
That's after. Yeah. You just can't get too ahead of yourself. And I'm the first one to say I've got ahead of myself, saying, I'm gonna do this, that.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Anyway.
this is a good segue because Ollie Conga, a fellow Bristol surfer, or someone who's been hitting the wave pool, he's messaged in asking about your pop-up technique, and I appreciate there's. So he's watched your videos. He's lots of people should. I didn't like. I've been looking into this a lot myself. Right? Do I jump up? Do I? I've got a dirty knee that comes in there. Do front foot first, back foot. Like so many questions, right? And obviously there's not one answer to this topic, but you've got quite a unique way of doing it, and it's quite a smooth way. It's not like it doesn't look rushed. So maybe just like you're laughing, but maybe just explain what you do and why you do it, and look,
So
like benefits and negatives.
I don't have what a surf instructor would call the classic take off, like the pop up. So you've seen some coaches, you just pop up quite quickly. I'm a two-step, I don't know how you'd call it, or crab crawl. I get up a bit slower, and the only reason I realize this is once I put the GoPro on the front of my board and I had it filming me, and I was like, oh, I take off like that. And so what I do, I think I have my hands on the rail, and I think I start bringing my front foot forward, and my hand shuffles over, and I'm still holding my hand, and it's the last thing that actually comes up. So that kind of gives me the balance, but I definitely don't pop up in one go. Maybe I should be practicing a lot more burpees, but it's just my style since I've grown up. I can't change that. So it's what I've always said to people. If you have your board facing, like down the line, and you do take that little bit more time getting up, it's okay. It's fine. Like you just, how do I say it? By having it correctly pointed down the line will give you that maybe that second or two extra to get up, but you don't need to rush it. And I see, well, experience seeing people often like pop up and then they're just unbalanced and they fall. So yeah, like I say, I crab crawl up my board. It works. And then after, but I'm still, I keep my knees compressed and my body over the board, and I'm still really low to my board, and that also helps. So I'm not like getting up straight legged.
Yeah.
It's like if you get up straight legged, like forget about it.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I say to people, if even if you do keep your hands on your rails, 3-4 seconds down the wave, it's okay. Take your time.
Yeah.
But as long as you're nice and compressed.
Yeah.
But that's just me again, because I'm
you're not on your own. Like,
really slow.
Marlon Lipke's got a nice little drill in his videos, touching the board at the top of the wave. So being compressed, he talks about it in a way of like absorbing the energy of the wave, being compressed at the top, and then using it by kind of extending, so the compression extension stuff. Fipsy, he says similar stuff. He uses like the Z position, so like straight torso, bent to the knees instead of straight legged and bent to the hips, right? Like, and he's low to the board as well. So they're saying different people have got different brush strokes, but you're saying some similar things.
Yeah, that's just how I've seen, well, how I get up. And again, because I realize that like people maybe my age, you might not be 13 that can pop up super quick. I've always at least stressed, again, like take your time. It's okay if you get up in 2 steps like I do. So I still can get up. I can still, make these takeoffs. It's still fine.
You're very smooth though. Like you like, I'd say the things that made a difference for me recently is knowing that getting the board moving with a bit of momentum, do you have to do 10 hard paddles? Well, no, it's only 3 to 4. So you'd said about hard paddles, and when the wave picks you up, another paddle. Fipsy will say
hard.
Three paddles, 4 to be sure is his kind of phrase, right?
Okay.
But it's the same thing of, okay, it's I'm at a live bay. I need to paddle when I feel it. I need to give another stroke at least. All those things, like for lower level people like myself, like that takes time up, but you've got it very smooth in your kind of process, right?
But I was going to say with you, if you realize the first time you take off, you think, oh, you end up at the top. Next time you think, okay, right here, I stopped and I tried to get up. Okay, now this is where I need to give that extra.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, well, that's where the wave pool's good, isn't it? Because you know that, okay, it's going to reproduce in pretty much the same way. And therefore, yeah, okay, I do need to know a paddle. That works. So frustrating, but great training for, Rachel suggested this, so I'm going to try that, or stay low to the board, or it's pretty amazing for that kind of. That
and
aspect.
like my backhand, like I've just been practicing, it's like bottom turn, or, looking with where I'm going, top turn, or things that I never did in the ocean. And now I'm starting to do it, and you do it over again. And that's what's so brilliant, because we are fortunate to be able to, if you haven't worked that wave, okay, that didn't work. Okay, the next wave, you do it again, and you can keep on practicing until, it's like repetition. It starts, sooner or later, it should start sinking into the brain.
Yeah, exactly.
So at least I've actually noticed in the ocean, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm actually looking up, whereas before I didn't. And starting, my backhand, just in Oz, I had a few waves and I was like, oh, I did a backhand turn. I did that, and I had my shoulders and my body in the right position. Like forehand, it's just second nature, but backhand, like I said, I'm still working on it. And you think, oh, okay, that did make a difference. And it's just that repetition. And I love still learning new things. Like I'm getting older, but I'm still, I still want to learn. I still want to learn how to do an air. I'm not sure that will happen, but I still want to, there's things that, you still want to learn and get better.
Growth mindset, right? I mean, like you say, it's getting it always seems to, people have the similar thing to say. It's the idea, it's the, where do you get the information from? Okay, 6-time Swiss national champion. Obviously, we've just heard a brief snapshot of your surfing history, but hearing you say, try this stuff makes me inclined to go and try it, right? And same with
I hope it
Fipsy and
does
Marla
work.
and Patrick. And
yeah, because I know that, especially in that intermediate range, and especially, for example, a wave pool, what you get taught in the ocean, it's different to a wave pool. And so some people have this idea, okay, well, it's okay in the ocean, take it to the wave pool, and it is different. So at least if there's a few tips that we can be giving when you're in the wave pool, it makes, like I said, I got helped, that first time when I was getting just drilled. If you can pick up like a few tips, and those guys that you've just mentioned, they're amazing. They've got even tips that I'm like, oh, wow, like I want to learn that.
Yeah.
So, but especially like I said, in that intermediate range of surfers, well, I hope there's lots of tips that people can be, walking away with and trying.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that is missing, or it's hard to find that type of information.
Yeah. Well, we should probably say as well, got two videos from you on the platform. One is on takeoffs, on your, what you've described very briefly, like the crab crawl, the two-step approach. And obviously every wave's different. So this is, we're saying for the wave pool, but it's obviously applicable for the sea as well. It's just that
for
it's,
sure.
we're dealing with the advanced waves and the expert waves.
Exactly.
But the techniques are still transferable. And then we've also got you talking about your turns. We haven't even talked about chopping wood or your cut back and stuff like that. But you had one of the best sessions out there. You were surfing with Patrick in the same session, and you were smashing it. I remember you getting barreled through the session and some of your turns. I mean, it was fantastic, right?
That was a really good session. That was fun.
So
the water was nice. It was sunny. That was great. I think now having to do that session with a 6mm wetsuit might not be quite as dynamic, but look, there's a few tips in there, especially, for turns. They're ones that have helped me over time. So again, each to their own, but this is what I've also been, taught in the past, and it helps.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking in the green room before we started the podcast, and it was saying that I bumped into a surfer down at the Wave in Bristol, and he really liked your voice, he liked what you were saying, and what you said really resonated with him, and you were kind of like, oh, that's really nice. And that's the idea of the project, right? Is taking information from interesting people who you can't
Yeah.
normally connect to as high a level as we can reach.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you know, super helpful, super positive about the sport, all different kind of like walks of life, but just interesting people that can help you, whether it's mid lengths, whether it's, you know, a female competitive surfer at top level, uh, whatever it is, and so that you can enjoy your sessions as much as possible. And that's the
Well, that's like
idea.
the goal, like, and to always help people, and because people want to progress, you want to surf a bit better, you want to have a bit more fun. You might not want to always be falling, so that's what these videos, yeah, designed for, is to help. And if someone can pick up one bit of, one piece of information that's helpful, I mean, that goes a long way. It's like that one piece of information I got from the coach. It went a long way. It meant that I was catching waves opposed to getting smashed next to the wall.
Yeah.
It's always nice to be able to help people, and whether it's from me or someone else. Yeah, we've all got our different ways we might do takeoffs or this or that, but yeah, it's pretty nice that someone can getting info
Yeah, it's nice, right?
from help.
Listen,
Yeah.
it's well over an hour now.
Yeah.
I know you're super busy, so but thank you for making the time.
Yeah, it's lovely chatting.
Yeah, always. What we're going to do is, for people that have listened to this podcast and are now listening to this, we're going to do a promo code, and it's podcast RBM. So for Rachel Bonhote-Mead. So podcast RBM. I'll set this up this evening. And so anyone who's listening to this now, just hold on for a few hours. But if you're listening to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Audible, then when you use this promo code, just come to the monthly subscription, which is normally £10 a month, and just put this in, and you'll be able to access all the content for free for a month. So just as part of this kind of podcast with Rachel, and come and have a look at her videos, come and have a look at other people have got to say as well. That's it. Yeah. So thanks again for your time. All right.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely chatting.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again, Rachel.
See ya.